I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, gang, we're back with Nick Stewart, sleep coach. We're not going to do a big introduction here. This is part 2. And if you need an introduction, then please go back and listen to our first episode about
It's not
sleep.
pretty. It's not pretty. That's what, if you have to remember anything, my introduction is not a pretty one. So that's all you have to remember.
Yeah, but it does give you some context into um, where your journey took you to this point. So I think that's definitely important. People should understand when they work with somebody that they get them, quote unquote, understand
Yeah.
them, have kind of
Yeah.
been through similar challenges. So I think
Yeah.
that's important. So hey, let's
That's a great point, Dave. It's a great point.
yeah, yeah.
It, it, it does things better and probably worse, but it's a true reality. It comes up at every single moment with a new client or someone who wants to weigh their options. I just quickly have to tell them, just so I'm like, there's nothing you can bring to me that's going to freak me out or scare me. I don't need you to feel bad for me, but you should just know this happened
Yeah,
and mistakes happen. And it was really so bad that, frankly, there's nothing you're going to say to me tonight on the phone that's going to scare me.
yeah.
And
And
that puts people at ease. They're like, oh, good. Wow, that is crazy. That guy's got issues.
but when I talk with people and they book like a quick intro call with me to see if we're a good fit and I can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
them. Um, I make no bones about me being a train wreck as a kid. you know, I mean, I wandered around the hallways in school and didn't know where my next class was, and it was just I clawed my way out of high school. I think that's important for people to understand. I also think it's important, because I only work with busy professionals like business owners, people in the C-suite. I work with everyone in between, lower middle management, that type of thing. But they need to understand that I've worked in those roles as well. I've run a business. I've had to meet payroll. I have ADHD, I think our background provides some context. So if you want to hear Nick's background, um, actually, you do need to go back and listen to the first episode on sleep. So, I mean, let's just get to it. So, we're going to talk about steps to kind of getting back on track with our sleep. We want to give people some kind of action items because if you have ADHD, you have had challenges with sleep at one time or another. Some people I've worked with have tremendous challenges with sleep. I'm out like a light 5 minutes after I hit the pillow. So, so we're all different, right?
Remind me
But
not to tell my clients about you, David. I have
no,
to
no,
keep
no,
you
no,
a secret.
no. And there's some other things like I'm never late for anything, and then people are like you're full of shit.
Are you an early bird or are you a night owl? You're an
Well,
early bird.
I grew up in a military family, so after years and years of that,
Early
I
bird.
kind of just you
Yeah,
know
you
it.
conditioned.
You do
Yeah.
you're the wiring in your brain does
Now
change.
they've proven we can, bend our genes.
Neuroplasticity or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's recap briefly. How does poor sleep affect like a busy person with ADHD, a busy adult, a demanding job, kids? How does poor sleep affect that person?
I think you could we could go to AI and say, give us the top 5 challenges in this regard. But I think, it's the easiest thing to say is whatever you struggle with is going to be observably worse, whatever that is. Whether it's maintaining a certain focus or a length of time, you're going to be done in half the time. Like whatever, it is, it's gonna sort of decay it. Um,
So if
because
you already have
it's
challenges with your executive functions, your working memory, your task planning, your procrastination, that's just going to fuel,
yeah,
you know.
because
Mhm.
well, it's the opposite is that you're starting to run low on a currency of energy, really,
Yeah.
in literal terms. So when you go to put a demand on it and you have ADHD, there's not as much in the tank to begin with. So you're working with less now, and then you lose more sleep and then you get to like break even. And then you lose more sleep and now you're, like folks I work with who are just like I said, they go to bed and then 3 hours later they're so freaked out with anxiety they can't go to sleep till the next night.
Yeah.
You got a variation of energy.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, so the first thing that's kind of sleep sciencey, but this has been true for literally decades. This is one of the weird things about what I do is that like the science part has been really dead on for like 4 or 5 decades. It's the same.
Mm,
It's other things that are sort of that concern me about why some of this information hasn't spread. But so your circadian training. So when you said about you being a military brat,
mm,
my sleep science brain is like, oh, whatever he had as what we call the circadian rhythm. It's like the clock that turns everything on for you at a sort of relatively similar part of time. You got trained to be a morning person. Who knows what you were,
mm.
but that long of repetitive consistency is going to shape that function. And mostly they think of the sleep as having two functions. That is the major one half. The other one is the buildup of this neurohormone called adenosine. And when that hits like a certain amount that no one knows, you fall asleep. But the other half of it is the circadian training. So one of the big things that ADHD people have issues is consistent circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
So what can you do about it? Some really simple things. You just make sure you get your butt out before 10 a.m. ish and get sun exposure on your face. Don't stare into the sun. That's not helpful. But let sun hit your face for about 20 to 30 minutes into the side of your eyes. That produces serotonin that is then later used at night to then transfer to melatonin and help enhance your going to sleep, feeling better, being more refreshed, and whatnot. So, ironically, my first tip for you is nothing to do with anything at night. And this is one of the key sort of pieces of the book that I'm releasing now is that one of maybe the only secrets is that to really effectively handle your night, you must become first sort of very hyper conscious of your days and how you use your own energy and when you use it and what you do with it during the day. But circadian training starts with that get out in the sun, get it in your eyes. There are lights. I had a woman I worked with in uh, Australia who struggled for God, like 15, 20 years with mornings. You should have heard her system for waking up. It was like I drag myself to here. I take a Red Bull, I put it into here. I wait 10 minutes and I take a coffee. Like it was just like stimulant after stimulant after stimulant, and she was just dead. She didn't get sun where she lives. And so I was like, you need to order one of these lights on Amazon. So this could be you. You're looking for a 10,000 lux light and the cost ranges, but that's your minimum. So if it's a gray day or it's the winter and you're not getting as much sun exposure or whatever, there's cost effective option called 10,000 lux light. And so you could even put that on during the day. So this is one of the rare hacks between sort of sleep and energy and ADHD and how to help yourself when you're struggling.
Yeah.
So let's
There's
say let's say you didn't sleep well, right? To your original question.
yeah.
Now you're either at work or you're at school. and you could really use a triple Red Bull. Well, I call these 10,000 lux lights visual Red Bull because you get them just off the side of your eye so you get used to it. But it literally is sending waves of light into your eye that is stimulating the glands that are creating energy. So you get more focused.
Yeah.
So
There was a
if you're struggling and you have ADHD during the day, one of the best things is to get in 10,000 lux light on and going for at least 10 minutes and just keep working.
Oh yeah, because a lot of us struggle like on cloudy days. I mean, even more so. There was a Huberman Lab podcast with Rick Rubin, who was the big, music producer, the guy with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
beard. He's
yeah,
known
yeah.
for
He's had the
meditation.
same beard forever.
Yeah, exactly. But that's his mission critical, non-negotiable routine is, and he can afford to live on the beach. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that's what he does. He walks on the beach every morning and gets that
Oh, okay.
sun. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and uh Huberman and him went through the science um of the sunlight, and some of the things you alluded to. Now I will say that a lot of people with ADHD, Huberman podcasts can be 2.5 hours. So you might not, but you can go on YouTube and get the, as they say, the cliff notes of a lot of his podcasts. But to your point, that was like really critical to starting off their day was the sunlight. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's strange. It's strange. I think it would have, for folks who saw the first episode, I honestly think that it would cut my insomnia of 2.5 years down to at least a year under 9 months if someone had just originally taught me that.
yeah, yeah.
You
So I
know,
think
you
that's
got
one.
and look, there's just realities when you first start to do these things, and it's like, no, 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 for like 6 weeks, every single day, Saturday, Sunday, every day. After 6 weeks, whatever, but you got to give enough time, and you have to use a little will, and it's uncomfortable, but it then eventually does get easy, and your automatic system takes over, and your body's rushing you out the door, and you're like still sleeping.
But that's as you say, one of the things I wanted to ask is there must be some discipline involved in correcting your challenges with sleep. So, for example, a lot of people I've talked with over the years where they worked a busy job all day, and then they went home and they had dinner and they got young kids, so the young kids went to bed and maybe the wife went to bed and they're like, all right, this is me time,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they're on Netflix at 2 a.m. and then they got to get up and work, and then they know why, but part of the brain is wondering why they're so tired the next day, and this goes on to this vicious cycle. So if you are going to um, start the process of improving your sleep habits, I would imagine there's got to be some discipline involved, right?
Yeah, I think a way I came to talk about it and sort of learn from just sort of interviewing people along a spectrum of sort of energy, really, it was that if you do sleep fitness 101 with me, you I realized there's some things that are going to become a part of your life.
Yeah.
I originally kind of thought it was more like you just learn a bunch of tricks, do them for a while, and then you're good. But what I really came to find out over time is that there's going to be a few things that like you start doing, and at first you're like, I'm just doing this so I can get better sleep. But like 2 years from now, you're still gonna be doing it. It's gonna become part of your lifestyle. So there are a few things like that. And then, like you said and suggested, there's another few things that you'll do for maybe 6 weeks and never do again, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. You don't know. It reminds me of a ship kind of blasting out of the orbit, and those pieces fall off as it goes. It's sort of like that. The further that you go, there's a bunch of things that you've sort of implemented and sort of consciously chose to use to help create sleep that is regenerative for you energetically and focus wise. And I think that's just like a reality of it. And so those things just kind of go away. You don't even do them.
Yeah.
It's a suggestion I make at the end of the book where I'm like, my hope is that this book, you find it randomly and certain things have changed so dramatically that you're like, what is this even for? This is such useless dribble.
Yeah. So people need to understand that if they, you know, start to work on these things on their own, or whether they work with somebody like yourself, that um they're gonna have to they're gonna have to build that sleep muscle, so to speak. They're gonna have to get serious about it, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And everyone's different in terms of their level of motivation and where they're at and what they're doing. But like, just like take the light example. It's awkward to have light that bright shooting kind of near you. You have to kind of build a little bit of a muscle to get kind of lay into it and get used to it, and then it becomes a nice stream of energy for you.
Yeah.
But like, then there's easy things like I'm not a huge fan of melatonin. In part, it's because I found studies where they robbed the rats of melatonin at night and they slept fine.
Hmm.
And they jacked them through the gills all day with melatonin and they never took a nap. So I have this weird theory that like we really want melatonin to be the thing that makes us fall asleep. But if you survey enough people you know who are like, oh, I took melatonin, it's too inconsistent. It does all these different things. However, there's a few rare cases where actually I would go, yeah, a small dose of melatonin might be something to consider. Ask your doctor. Is that folks with ADHD have shortened what we call REM sleep stage, which is the second phase of deep sleep, which in short really matters for ADHD folks because it is the mental refresh, reorganize, rekindle. It is the mind time to
Yeah.
be redone. And so you are already starting on average to be someone who has less time in that phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good news. You want to be in there. So a small amount of melatonin, so that might be worth it for you. You
Yeah.
know, you got to like kind of kind of hedge your bets as much as you can. I think that's something that surprises people at first when they work with me, is that we're working on this one thing, and it's like, okay, here's one thing we're going to do. Now we're going to identify a second thing that comes at this same issue, but from a slightly different angle. And we're going to do one more. And then we're going to implement all three at the same time at a certain time of day that maximizes the improvement of sleep.
You're right. So let's discuss when somebody should seek the help of somebody like yourself, or a different type of sleep professional. What are what are those kind of key signs or things going on in your life that tells an individual that, you know what, I got to I got to get some help with this.
Two easy ones, and there is institutionalism behind the care part of it. One is that you want to find out either through listening to an app or through your husband, wife, whatever, roommate, uh, are you allowed to snore? Because if you are, you really might want to go for a night test at a hospital to be checked for sleep apnea, where there's air restriction. It's not a joke. It's one of the only things that an actual Western medical doctor is like required to learn before he leaves med school. And in complications of it, killed my friend at the age of 40. So you don't want to mess around with that. So if someone tells you like, dude, you're a crazy loud snorer, you really want to be calling your doctor and being like, I need to set up a test for it. And then it's easy to take care of. That's the good news. The second thing is, are you routinely falling asleep during the day? Are people like, Dean, you just like passed out. It's like 2. We were just talking.
Mm.
If there's stuff like that, you might want to get tested for was called I'm like epilepsy. No, narcolepsy.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's a lot of gray, but those are the two big ones that should help you just kind of make a decision like that. The stuff that I work with, sort of like everything that falls out of those two, which is a lot of insomnia related things. And that plays out for people in different ways. So yes, we might all identify as ADHD, but the way that this part of our life comes out is all different than the next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that that's important for people to,
Yeah.
you know,
So I think
we talk about like when people are burned out and they have like various health issues like digestive issues and all that stuff. It's just like, you know, you could be super stressed out, burned out, your body's trying to tell you something. However, you really should maybe just check in with a professional just to give you peace of mind that it isn't something else, you know.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I think that's important. So
Yeah.
yeah. So as I always do, when
Yes,
we
Mr. Green
start to
Alert.
kind of wrap things up, what I think makes this podcast a little different, I think, than others is that I want to give people action items as we wrap up. So they've listened to some of the evidence, some of your tips about the light and other things, but let's walk through some of the even the basic habits that people can start on their own if their sleep is erratic, they're not getting sleep. And then, as you say, all right, maybe I do need to go see a professional like yourself, or maybe it's a doctor or something. But where do people listening to this start if they're just having trouble with sleep? What are the kind of basic steps somebody should take on their own to begin with?
Yeah, I think you can clearly I like to come up with umbrella statements. Um, it's like conditioning a dog but backwards. You whatever you can do with whatever effort and energy you have, you want to start reconditioning the space that you sleep in as only a space that you sleep in. So if it's a place that you're actively, like you said, watching Netflix, if you're having challenges with insomnia like elements, that's got to stop for a while.
Yeah,
So I would say for like parents with kids, if you have it, and this is just an accident, it's not like you know better, have accidentally sort of made the bedroom part of a significant playroom. If the child is really having challenges with sleep, you might want to start cutting away at that to the point where he only goes in because he goes to sleep there,
yeah,
you know? So you're sort of using basic animalistic science on yourself, and that can go all the way from doing that to like light filtering for the windows. You want to have your blinds down, you want it to be dark, so anything like that. Cooler environment, and we're getting into summer right now, Dave. So just in terms of practical tips, it's worth spending a little more money to get it a bit colder. Different research says different temperatures. Mainstream says 67 degrees. I can't go that cold. So you definitely want to be colder, darker, reconditioning sort of what activity happens. That took me a long time. I had multiple offices in my bedroom for long periods of time, And that took years of just sort of finally breaking them down into it's like a space where I really only go in my bedroom to change clothes and go to bed. That's it.
yeah,
And my body. And if I'm having a hard time, maybe mentally, I've done it so many times with my body that my body's picking up cues and putting me to sleep.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there, we've overly weighted the sort of the struggling part of this. The upside is that things that seem impossible to fix really can be fixed, and they become lighter and easier and become a source of energy for you. And it's a really wonderful thing. Like, I got a testimonial from a guy I thought, God, it's so good. I don't know if I can use it. He was, like you said earlier, he was genuinely shocked after 4 weeks of using a couple things I gave him. He was like, Nick, I had energy all day at work. And I'm like, yeah, that was the goal. And then he's like, but then I went home and I was with the kids and having dinner and I still was engaged. Like it's a miracle. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, yeah, that's what happens when you do this.
No, I think you're right. I think when you start to get good night's sleep over and over again, you start to feel like a human again, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're running on like you've got a surplus of energetic currency. If you're gonna read at night because you're having a hard time falling asleep, read fiction. Do not read nonfiction. They have studied this enough to figure out that
Hmm.
you do much better reading sort of people's inner thoughts because they think it generates empathy, which leads to the oxytocin release, which increases your quality of sleep. So, but nonfiction, like a book like Hyper Focus for someone who has ADHD,
Yeah.
that's going to be too stimulating.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Where can people find you?
I live on LinkedIn a lot, so it's you can search me by name. So I'm Nick or Nicholas Stewart. You can find me there. Now I'm on Amazon, so you can plug my name in there. The book is called Sleep Fitness, and sort of, part of it is sort of getting a new perspective on stuff that just hasn't changed, and really sort of kind of just putting two and two together finally.